This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast. I am J.M. Ryerson. I'm here for a Tuesday tune-up. We are going to talk about 3 things to say for an epic relationship. And we all want to have the best possible relationships, right? But why don't we? Is it possible to have epic relationships with our spouse, kids, friends, and coworkers, but we often choose not to? We allow things to go unsaid because we are hurt or conditioned to do so. Your ego steps in and says, let's not completely put ourselves out there because you could get hurt. Instead, we choose to give partial effort to the relationship and in turn get a partial result. Let's tell our ego to take a time out and give epic relationships a chance. Here are 3 things to say to create that epic relationship. And the first one is very simple. It's something that we probably don't do enough of, and that's just say, I love you. I am of the opinion that you cannot say I love you too much. And I'm not talking about the casual, I love you, but rather a heartfelt, I love you. And then follow that up with why you love that person so much. So growing up, my mom, she said, I love you to us kids repeatedly, and she made sure that we knew it. My dad came from a bit of the old school background and rarely said it aloud. Now that has changed radically as I've gotten older. My dad and I always would say it to each other. And obviously I'm very glad because for those of you that don't know, I lost my dad just over a month ago. And I'm glad that we broke through that, not saying it, because I really don't remember saying it to my dad until the day I left for college, which was so different because it was so different with my mom versus my dad. And obviously I was able from 18 to 43 say it, but just imagine if I hadn't. And so that is one that's so important. And we know how good it feels when you tell that person how important they are to you. And if you feel that way about someone, don't be afraid to just tell them and make sure they know you mean it. I know one thing that's changed with me and any of you that work with me, I'm not afraid to tell another guy I love him. If I do, I do. And that's okay. And I know I wasn't necessarily raised that way. You know, it's not kind of macho to say it, but it's just something that feels good when you say it, and it really feels good to hear it. So the second one is say, I'm sorry. So now, ego, it is time for you to take a back seat. We have to say, I'm sorry, and admit that we're at fault to whatever degree that we are at fault. And sometimes even if we're not at fault, just to say, you know what, I'm sorry for this misunderstanding. So let's make no mistake, in any relationship, there are multiple parties and we both play a part. Often we get caught up in the finger pointing, the game of you're right, I'm wrong, or you're wrong and I'm right. Who cares? We are literally willing to lose important relationships and people from our lives to prove that we're in the right. And by the way, that is just your ego talking and trying to protect you. Now, I have never been physically hurt by saying I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that it's always received, but I can at least say I gave my best effort to repair the hurt that I caused. So don't wait. Just say, I'm sorry, and get that gnawing feeling out of your body. You will feel better and your relationships will improve as well. Literally, the 2 most important words maybe we have at our disposal is, I'm sorry. Just being able to say, you know what? I don't know why we're fighting, or I do know and I don't care because this relationship means more to me than the pride or my ego. And then the last one is say the future. I have never met someone that didn't want to be inspired. Not once in my life has that ever happened. So why don't we share our vision of what we want this relationship to look like in the future? Speak that into existence, that future, and let that other person add and share in the vision. It will help make sure that you're in alignment with that other person by sharing your feelings and desires. It also gives them permission to support what you are wanting that relationship to become. It opens the door to know what they want and make sure that you can support them and the relationship as well. I recently did this with a gentleman, and again, I met him and I just knew this was someone I was going to have in my life for a long time. And I told him as much. I said, look, Tommy's his name. I said, Tommy, you are going to be in my life for a long time. And I'm not afraid to say that. I don't know how it's going to look, but I know that you are someone that I want to be around. And he received it really well. He said, you know what? I believe that. And I feel the same way. And so we have actually escalated a relationship, a friendship to a much deeper level than if we waited for years and years to actually talk about it. So say it in the future. Having an epic relationship means having legendary, monumental, or larger than life relationships. In other words, it's not common. In order to have an epic relationship, you're going to have to do things a little uncommonly. If you're uncomfortable saying, I love you, I'm sorry, or the future, get comfortable doing it, because growth occurs when you're outside of your comfort zone, and you deserve to have an epic relationship, and being a bit uncomfortable is worth it. Don't you guys agree? So just to recap, say, I love you. If you're feeling it, don't be afraid. I'm not saying be weird. Like, if you're on a first date, maybe that's not appropriate. Okay. I get that. But if you've known someone and they know you and you feel that way, don't be afraid to say it. And don't be afraid to get hurt, because guess what? It's going to happen either way. Say, I'm sorry. If you're in the wrong, especially, just put your ego down and say, you know what? I'm at fault here. I'm sorry. And lastly, say the future. What do you want this to look like? Especially if you're not seeing eye to eye with that person, just say, you know what? This is what I want in this relationship. I want it to be this, even if we're not there today. And that way they can get on board. So I hope you guys got a lot from that. I loved writing that article because you get to look at ways that we can grow. We can have more epic relationships. And really, if we look at it, it does fall on us. We can make that choice to say, I love you, say, I'm sorry, and say what the future is. Or we can keep quiet and have pretty common relationships. But I think you deserve more than that. So give it a shot. Until next time, you guys, remember your mindset matters, and I will talk to you soon. Oh, make sure to share this with your friends. Let them know about it. I'd love to hear more from you guys on what you're getting from it, good, bad, or indifferent. So share this with your friends, and let's keep growing the podcast. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.